Namaste, my dear friends. Our subject today is what's your archetype? How does the masculine and the feminine archetype controls our life, and why do we need to know them? Why we want to know about that? So the term archetype was coined by the famous psychiatrist Carl Jung, and the definition what he gave is a primitive mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors and supposed to be present in the collective unconscious. Now, if this is complicated, let me give you a very simple definition of what he's trying to explain. For example, an archetype is an image. For example, let me say how my grandmother looked like, what she wore, what kind of traits she had, qualities she had, what she, how she used to behave. All these things are like a picture in my head. How my mother, what kind of dresses she wear, so as a child I would say, okay, this is what a woman is, right? So this is like a picture. And not only that influences us, there are other things like, let's say, movies, right? How a woman is depicted in a movie, it is there, it goes into our subconscious, and we start learning through that, right? So how do you categorize, like, archetype of feminine and masculine are, according to Carl Jung, he has given like 4 categories. He said the feminine archetype, the first is the mother, the queen, the wise woman, and the lover. Okay, there are 4 categories of the feminine archetype and 4 categories of the masculine archetype. The masculine archetype is the warrior, the king, the sage, and the lover. Now, why are we interested in understanding this? Friends, our personality is, even like our journey as an individual, is quite complex, right? And let me just give you an example. Let's say there's like a maze, right? Like a maze. You have seen many different paths. So all the paths are not going to one direction, right? So the maze, only one path goes to the right direction. So for example, in our life, we are going to our purpose or whatever we are born for. We are in that journey. But in that journey, we would be pulled into different direction, right? And those paths are not correct because there is a dead end, right? We are not getting anywhere. So sometimes what happens is these social expectations that are created because of these archetypes takes us away from our path, like gender roles, right? So, and we get deviated from what we really want to do in our lives. Now let me give you another example. Like, I just spoke about how Carl Jung has defined this, but he has given like 4 categories for us to understand. Maybe there are more category, right? But let's say a child has grown seeing waterfalls and huge rivers and mountains, all these beautiful things, and he has not been exposed to any gender roles. I'm sure you have heard the story about one man. Actually, he was a little boy when he got lost in the jungle, and he was brought up by a herd of tigers, right? So the tigers didn't eat this boy, but the tiger nurtured this boy, and this boy grew up in the herd of the tigers, and he started acting like them. He started eating like tigers, he started hunting like tigers, everything, whatever, he thought he's one of them, right? And one day it happened that somebody has seen this boy, some man seen this boy, and he said, oh, he's a man, why he's acting like a animal? And he took this man and he showed his picture to in the water. And in the water, when he saw, he said, oh, I don't actually, I'm not like a lion or a animal, I'm a human, right? So we all know the story, and that is the time that he realized, okay, I'm a human. Similarly, friends, be it male, be it female, masculine or feminine, whatever we are born with, right? And we want to express ourselves that way, right? But is that expression external or is that internal expression, right? Because is it something that we are taking from the outside world, or it is coming from inside, right? So that's why it is important to know these archetypes. So how are these archetypes controlling our lives? So also one question comes, what is my archetype? So it's good to just sit and analyze. Sometimes these archetypes are good. For example, if my archetype is like a king, right? So okay, the king, what is that? What is the quality of the king? He's calm and he thinks of people and he takes decisions, he feels confident. All these are the traits of a king. But there are other things also which may not be good. For example, the king can be dominant, the king can be using his powers not in a right way, right? So that can be the negative trait that is coming. But here I'm, we also need to go beyond that, first to understand where we are coming from. So even if there is an archetype, where is that archetype coming from? And then going beyond that so that we can find our authentic self, right? So many of you may know me as your, I'm in your friend list. I'm Aditya Dutta. I call myself an identity coach and traveler, and this is what I'm passionate about, to understand identity and to question identity, like who am I, like how Raman Maharishi said, who am I really, right? And sometimes we need to go into this psychological understanding to actually discover the true self, which is like the onion, how we keep peeling the onion layer by layer by layer, right? So this could be one very important layer, is our archetype. So how are archetypes controlling our lives? The answer is, friends, gender roles, right? We have seen, especially in context to our Indian society, we have seen the breadwinner role goes to the man, right? And the homemaker role goes to the woman. Of course, these things are changing, but still, these gender roles and expectations, they are lurking behind our subconscious somewhere. And we act out from it, not knowingly. Unconsciously, we are acting out of it. The self identity and the beliefs that they are like deeply ingrained, right? For example, for males, they cannot show their emotion. If they show their emotion, it's a sign of a weak man. So a man in the Indian society is discouraged from showing his emotional vulnerability. He cannot be vulnerable. And the female is encouraged with emotional openness and empathy, right? And she is labeled to be like a sacrificer in the Indian context, right? And though we see things changing, but these stereotypes, they control our lives, in a lot, uh, like not a spoken way, in an unspoken way. These things are there, right? So these also affects our relationship dynamics. Individuals, as I said, unwillingly fall into this stereotypical roles in the relationship, right? Though, okay, he's an open man and he's a new age man, but still after the marriage, he expects his wife to behave like his mother, his grandmother, or the generation, what his idea of a woman is. And same for a woman, she expects the man to protect her, to take care of her, what she has the gender stereotype of a male in her head. And what more examples can we think of? Let's talk about career choices and aspiration. Till date, certain careers paths, we say, it's considered more aligned to a specific archetype. We say, okay, like women, okay, these kind of, like she can be like a teacher, she can be like a cook, but we can't see like a woman, maybe like an inspector, or I don't know, maybe some other roles. We can't, okay, that role is not suitable for her. So this affects our self-worth and validation. We keep thinking, okay, am I falling in the societal norm? Am I accepted as whoever am I? So we keep this internal validation keeps going on inside us. Even we see this in case of parenting, and in like when we go into like a social party or something, we have these very much present in our society, right? So like the caregivers may unknowingly, again I'm saying unknowingly, because that's what archetypes are, because we are not aware of them, they are working in our subconscious. So caregivers may unknowingly reinforce certain gender expectations to their child. right? And hence the same is another example I can give is identity and inclusivity, right? The archetype may impact how individuals perceive and interact with those who express their gender identity outside their traditional norms, right? They might not want to fit into the categories, right? We have put like some labels, some categories. Now these labels also are coming from what we have seen, what we have read in history, like in books. Now everything is not negative about it, because we have like wonderful stories, and like even our epics, they are filled with beautiful stories of the divine masculine and feminine, right? And when we read those stories, they inspire us. So these are like inspiring archetypes, right? But what I just said are the archetypes that limits us. So the one question comes, is archetype good or bad? So archetype is not a good or bad, it is neutral, right? It depends which attributes we are using of the archetype. Example, as I said, epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, when we are reading about these, like the character of Rama, when we see Rama as the masculine character, we we it also helps us grow the understanding and connection, like what the characteristics of a man can be, right? And it also connects us to our culture, our Indian spirituality as Indians. It gives us a personal identity also. Those are the good part. It helps us in our growth and development, right? Because sometimes it can also happen, okay, if I don't know what is the divine masculine qualities, we can't grow in a positive direction. And archetypes are used in storytelling all the time. So friends, we understood the positive aspects of archetypes. I started actually with the negative aspects, like stereotypes and limitation, reinforcements of gender norms, prejudices, unconscious influences we were talking about, right? But personally for me, I just want to go out of the box, and I want to question you, what happens if we have not grown with any kind of archetypes? It was like a blank slate. So when I read the story autobiography of Osho, he has written that when he was growing up like a child, he didn't ever go to school, right? He was swimming in the river, he was on top of the tree. He said up till 8 years, his grandparents said no education for him. So all he did was watching the birds, going up in the mountain, swimming in the river, sleeping in the nature. He just enjoyed, and his grandparent allowed that. After 8th standard, he went to school, but up till 8th, his slate was clean. That's what he saw around. The entire nature is what he saw around, right? So the imprints, that's what I'm talking here. What are the imprints that went into his brain as a child? The trees, the birds, and the beautiful mountains, and the sunlight, the sun. So what happened is, when these imprints goes in, these are powerful imprints. Can you imagine just sitting blank in the nature, and you're just surrounded by these powerful impressions, in these powerful images? Or you're just stargazing, or there are so many saints who talks about nothingness. So friends, according to my interpretation, I call it the divine union, because the divine union is about finding our true masculine side. What does it mean? The true masculine side, what is the true feminine side, and how can we live it in our daily lives? So my question to you is, what is your archetype? We can start from learning from example. Yes, we can start from Carl Jung, understanding, oh, am I like a king? Am I like a lover? Am I like a warrior? What is my archetype? I'm a mother, I'm a father. What kind of archetype? What suits me? And of course, we may vibrate, or we may actually resonate with all of them, but one will be dominant. Yes, I am more of a like a king, or I'm more of a like a saint, I'm more of a like a mother, I'm more of like a lover. And it could be different also for you, right? But then, if I am more of a lover, or maybe I'm more of a warrior, then where did I pick this archetype? That's a second question. So back in time, I'm, something has struck in me like a child, like, okay, it's warrior is great, maybe I saw a movie, or maybe I read Mahabharata, and I understood how Krishna was, fighting the war, right? Something came into me, and we have to see, is that the divine part, or is that the toxic part of it? What is the divine part of it? What is the toxic part of it? So when we question ourselves all these things, what happens is, at some point of time, all these impressions leaves us, and we are left with our authenticity. That is not coming from an experience, that is not coming from a movie, that's not coming from your grandfather, or your fourth generation, what your family tree is all about. It's not coming from there, right? So we need to understand first, where are these archetypes coming from, because we all crave for this authentic identity. You know why? Because we are looking for true love, truth. And if, it's like, if we are not living our authenticity, if we are not living our true love, how can we find love outside? If we are not, if you're not having truth inside, how can we find truth outside? If you don't have the love inside, how can we find love outside? If you don't have a divine marriage inside, how can we have a divine marriage outside? So my question to you, my friend, is, how can you find your unique authentic identity and expression? And when we question this identities over and over, masculine and feminine, some point, it dissolves. We cross the gender binary. Because if you have noticed your gender, you have actually put your attention to it, you have put your awareness to the gender, you will see the gender roles keeps changing. You can't actually specify, oh, this is masculine, oh, this is feminine. And even it works for relationship. I was giving example, if there are, a couple has this balanced of masculine feminine, and they're coming from their authenticity and not from these stereotypes, or these archetypes. They have their own essence coming to them. That is such a beautiful relation. There is no expectation about, okay, you are going to do this, and I'm going to do that. So friends, this is, I feel, like a beautiful process. We all are craving for this divine union, and I love to talk about it. I like to work on myself and others with the divine union, the masculine, the feminine side. That's what I'm passionate about.